Hey everyone, I'm really excited to be having this conversation because I think that it won't just help you, but it will also help myself, and especially as I reflect on this moment. This conversation today is going to be reflecting a lot about self-assessment and how that can help us lead to our own self-development. We know that there's a ton of people out here, not just myself, but the players, the coaches, the parents. We're all looking to improve, but it can't just start with, hey, I want to improve, and what is that next direction that we can go? It has to start with a self-assessment and starting to not only find out what we are strong with, but also what our weaknesses are. The story that I'm going to tell today is about my practice yesterday and how I had two of my more talented players come up to me and ask me about how they can improve. Honestly, when this happens, when my players come up to me, it's a touching moment because not only does it validate the coaching that I'm offering to them, but it also really helps me see how they have a future and a vision for themselves and how they want to get there, but how they don't always have those tools and they're not always equipped to get there by themselves. The two players that came up to me are super talented players. These are both girls that have tried out and played on our national level program, and so they're already at the top of the group. And the fact that they are focused on themselves and where they can get to next is exactly what's so inspiring about working with these kids, and how I always get a beautiful opportunity to learn with them, to progress with them, and to see myself with them. And so these two players are both defenders. They're both incredibly high skilled like we already talked about, but they're two completely different people, and so they had two different things to focus on. I'm first gonna start talking about my younger player, the first one that came up to me, and then we'll go over to the older player who also came up to me and had her own question, but how they're two different situations. The first player that came up to me is one of my 2030 defenders, and in this year that I've already been working with her, I've seen her quality all over the field. Throw in an offensive drill, she'll score the goals, she'll make good plays. Throw her in a defensive drill, she'll stop the ball, she'll make good plays. And so we see that she has the ability with the ball, without the ball. But really where this player struggles and where she can actually find a lot of her own improvement is going to be in her own communication and how much she expresses herself. I tend to see a lot of the time the players that can do it with the ball, that's great. But the next big thing that we have to focus on is what we're going to do without the ball and how much that can actually impact the game, how much that can add value. And so for this player, it's her expression. She doesn't really communicate, which is okay, but she doesn't do it yet. And so that's somewhere where we can add value. And with the communication, there's also going to be how much are you willing to express yourself, not just with your voice, but how much we really have our own game style and how much we try to turn this game into our thing, right? Especially on the defensive side of the ball. You can't really get away with not talking. At a lower level, at a younger age, you can play good defense. You can be in the mix. You can be a fantastic teammate. But if you are not actively adding your communication, talking to your teammates, and expressing your own vision, that's going to be a very large chasm that can only grow as you get older and older. And so the conversation that we had was, hey, I think that you're a fantastic player. What you need to know is that I've already recommended you for our national level program again. I've seen you scoring the ball, I've seen you play great defense, but what we haven't had yet is that we haven't had that communication where you're talking to us, and we haven't seen you execute your own vision with your communication. These are going to be areas where you can start to bring in your own creativity, but that we can also start to influence the game more. When I tend to see players not communicate, I tend to see that they're really focused on potentially saying the wrong thing or potentially being embarrassed by what they say. But what we have to understand is that in this game, and especially in sport, there's nothing that's embarrassing. And it's very hard to say the wrong thing. If you say something that you believe is not correct or that mismatches an assignment, at least the fact that we are expressing it is going to help our teammates cover our gap, or now they can communicate back to us and we can actually go and cover up that idea, or we can make it sharp. But if we have the wrong idea and we're not expressing our communication, it's now very hard for us to play team defense, and it's very hard for our teammates to either correct us or know what it is proper to do. And so what I told her was, we need to focus on this expression. These are the areas where we can improve it and how we can start to execute ourselves. And then on the self-development end, we're gonna have to see, is she going to show up to the next practice and try to start executing that vision, try to start participating with her communication, or Is where she was at good enough for her internally? I completely understand that there's a lot of the time when I tell my players to communicate that they might not start communicating. I've had players that I've been coaching for months, years sometimes, and they still struggle with that communication. It's nothing against them, but that is exactly what can hold us from the level that we're at and getting to that next level. And so that was the best advice that I had to offer her, and I'm really looking forward to her potentially going and showing us that next evolution in her own game. The next player, who was a little bit older, completely different situation. She's actually very high skilled. She's actually very creative. Good player both ways. She's a 29. I had her come up and play on my 28 team. I told you before that she was a defender. I put her on midfield and I saw her score a goal. But at that last tournament, when I told her that she's going on midfield, she said, "Really? Me? What? I can't do it." And so when she asked me what we could improve on, the first thing that I did was I went right back to that interaction and the fact that our self-communication, the ability that we have to self-develop, is gonna start with how we see ourselves and how we communicate, not only internally, but externally. The fact that she said all those things aloud, I mean, this is a fantastic player. She's a really good person, but that she is saying these things aloud exactly reflects that her mentality is not strong enough. And so what I told her for what she can work on is how much we actually express positivity. We can be a fantastic player. We can hustle all day. We can have bags full of hustle. But at the end of the day, if we're gonna show up to new situations and we're gonna have doubts about ourselves, what's actually gonna happen is that doubt is gonna hold us further back than our actual ability would. And then as we start to drop our ability to the equal level that our negative communication was, is exactly where we're gonna see ourselves play at that level. And so what I told her is that we need to get our positive communication up, and then that's actually gonna see you play better lacrosse, and these are gonna actually match up on the same level. It's tough seeing some fantastic players and they offer you negative communication. This is one of the things that I know a lot of coaches look out for, and it's okay, but a lot of coaches, instead of meeting that with positive communication, they'll just hear that and then they'll turn away. Because a lot of the time that actually sounds so negative that it's inoperable. Like, okay, you don't think that you're good enough. You don't think that you can do it. Do you want me to trust you to go take that opportunity? Or should we just be okay with the fact that you thought that you couldn't do it, right? And so what I told her before she went in was, stop. You can do it. You're a fantastic player. Go play your best lacrosse because I love to watch you play. And what she did was she went in, she played her best lacrosse, and she scored a goal immediately. The craziest part was that she scored the goal immediately. And she came over and she was like, "Coach, did you see that?" And I said, "I believed in you in the first place. I put the energy into you in the first place. I gave you the opportunity and I saw you go flourish." So when we were talking at practice, I told her again, the positive communication, and we need to start seeing you as a lacrosse player. Just because you're playing defense and you're really good at it at a young age does not mean that that's the best thing for you. We tend to see in girls lacrosse a lot of coaches at the end of the day, they like moving midfielders to defense because they're faster. And then the players that are on defense end up either getting phased out or they're looking to go play a new position and they don't have the skills and the ability to do it. So one of the big things that we need to focus on is our self-communication, how much we are fueling ourselves up and being positive. And then on the back end, how much do you see yourself as an actual lacrosse player? This can't just translate to lacrosse if you're a business person. You're not just focused on one area. There's a lot of things that we need to cover. If you're a musician, we can't get away with just doing one thing. We've got to be able to do multiple things. And so the same thing reflects in sport. Can you play out of your position? Can you do it confidently? I love challenging my players and communicating in this way because, of course, I know it's vulnerable from their perspective. They're trying their best. They're offering a piece of themselves to potentially get chewed up so that they can get better. My girls know that I'm tough, but my girls also know that I'm looking to inspire them and I want to see their growth. So really, when we have these conversations, it's very inspiring to me, and I hope I can help give value to them because, of course, again, I want to see them improve. But at the end of the day, we need to be willing to look at ourselves and be vulnerable and be willing to go and ask those tough questions. So my challenge for today is that we make sure that we are being self-aware, we are self-assessing, and then we are taking that into self-improvement. So if there's anyone that you believe has a good perspective of yourself, has seen you do what you do, and you would be open to their feedback or their potential criticisms, please go ask them for that. Whatever they give you, it could be, hey, be a little bit more aggressive. Hey, be a little bit louder. Hey, work on your footwork. Or it might even be, you're not good enough. Let's work on these things and these things. Whether we get the feedback in a positive or maybe not the most positive way, we need to have the skills and the power internally to take this and manifest power, right? It is not good enough to just be like, oh, I didn't like what they said, so I'm not gonna take it, I'm not gonna operate. Or, oh, the message was good, but it was hard on my soul, so I'm not gonna take it. No, we need to be willing to look at everything and take the steps and make those growths. I really appreciate you being here. This was a fantastic conversation. Have a beautiful rest of your day.